the arrival of the unknown. The stars seemed alive that night, winking conspiratorially as though they carried a secret. Daniel leaned against the railing of his small observatory, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee. It was his sanctuary, far from the city lights and noise, a place where the universe unfolded before him in all its infinite complexity. Tonight, however, there was a strange energy in the air, a tingling sensation that danced along his skin and refused to let him relax. A brilliant green flash split the sky without warning, brighter than any meteor he had ever witnessed. It streaked across the horizon, illuminating the countryside in an eerie, otherworldly glow. Seconds later, a deafening crash echoed through the stillness, shaking the ground beneath his feet. Daniel's heart thudded in his chest as his mind raced. Whatever it was, it had landed nearby. He didn't think twice. Grabbing his flashlight and a sturdy jacket, he plunged into the forest behind his home. The trees seemed unnaturally still, the usual chorus of nocturnal creatures conspicuously silent. The air was heavy with the scent of ozone, as though a storm had passed, yet the sky above was clear. He picked his way through the underbrush, guided by faint wisps of smoke curling upward in the moonlight. When he reached the clearing, he froze. At the center of a freshly formed crater lay something unmistakably alien. The pod was sleek and metallic, its surface shimmering faintly with a blue hue that shifted as he moved. Its design was impossibly smooth, with no visible seams or rivets, almost as if it had grown rather than been built. The hiss of decompressing air broke the silence as a section of the pod slid open. Daniel's grip on his flashlight tightened as his instincts screamed for him to run. But curiosity held him rooted in place, his breath caught in his throat. A figure emerged, stumbling slightly as it stepped into the moonlight. It was humanoid, but unmistakably not human. The being's skin had a faint, ethereal glow, its hue a soft cerulean blue. Its eyes were large and luminescent, glowing softly with an inner light that seemed to pierce through the darkness. Long, silver hair rippled as though caught in an invisible current, and its movements, though unsteady, were graceful and fluid. The figure faltered, clutching its side, and fell to its knees. Daniel's fear warred with a sudden, inexplicable surge of empathy. This creature, this alien, was clearly in distress. He took a hesitant step forward, his flashlight beam trembling as it illuminated the being's face. Are you hurt?" he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. The alien woman looked up, her gaze locking onto his. Her voice, when she spoke, was melodic yet laced with pain, reverberating not just in his ears but deep in his mind. "I am very sick," she said, her words clear despite her otherworldly accent. "And only you can help me, human." Daniel's mouth went dry. Her statement was as bewildering as it was terrifying. "What do you mean? What are you?" "I am Lyra," she said, her voice faltering as she struggled to remain upright. "I come from a distant star system. My vessel was damaged, and I crashed here. Inside me is a pathogen, one that will destroy me if I do not receive assistance. Your species possesses the enzymes needed to create an antidote." Her words sent a jolt through Daniel. As a molecular biologist, he had spent years studying enzymes and their role in various biochemical processes. But extraterrestrial pathogens? That was well beyond his expertise. Lyra reached into a compartment on her suit, her movements slow and deliberate, and produced a small vial that glowed faintly. "This is a sample of the pathogen. With your knowledge, you can create the cure. Please, there is little time." Daniel hesitated, his mind racing. The rational part of him screamed that this was impossible, that he was out of his depth. But another part of him, the part that had always yearned to uncover the universe's mysteries, whispered that this was a chance he couldn't ignore. "Okay," he said finally, his voice steadier than he felt. "I'll try. But you'll need to come with me. I don't have the equipment I'd need out here." Lyra nodded, though her exhaustion was evident. As Daniel helped her to her feet, he was struck by how light she felt, almost as though gravity had less hold on her than it did on him. Together, they made their way back to his house, the forest eerily quiet in their wake. Once inside, Daniel led Lyra to his basement, a makeshift lab cluttered with equipment from his graduate school days. It wasn't state-of-the-art, but it would have to do. I'll need more information about this pathogen, he said, carefully placing the vial under a microscope. Lyra sat on a stool, her breathing labored. It feeds on energy, she explained. It converts it into destructive byproducts that ravage organic systems. On my world, we neutralize it using compounds derived from our flora, but I lack the knowledge to identify your planet's equivalents. Daniel studied the organism under the microscope, his stomach churning at what he saw. The pathogen moved like a living thing, writhing and pulsating as though it had a will of its own. When he introduced a drop of his own blood, the reaction was immediate but surprisingly sluggish. The pathogen began breaking down in the presence of certain proteins. That's something, he muttered. If I can isolate the right enzyme, I might be able to synthesize a treatment. He glanced at Lyra. Her glow had dimmed, and her shoulders sagged with weariness. This might take some time, he warned. Time is something I do not have, she said softly, her voice tinged with a desperation that made his chest ache. As Daniel dove into his work, Lyra began to share fragments of her world, her voice a soft melody that filled the room. She spoke of starships that sailed solar winds, cities suspended in clouds of gas giants, and the intricate, symbiotic relationships between her people and their environment. Despite the urgency of the situation, Daniel found himself entranced. Lyra's stories painted a picture of a universe far grander than he had ever imagined, and with every word, his determination grew. He didn't just want to save her, he needed to prove that humanity was capable of rising to the challenge. The hours stretched into the early morning, but Daniel's focus never wavered. He didn't know if he could save Lyra, but he would give everything he had to try. A race against time. The early morning light filtered through the basement windows, casting soft rays onto Daniel's cluttered workspace. He barely noticed. Every nerve in his body was attuned to the challenge before him. A vial of glowing liquid alien pathogens suspended in an otherworldly medium sat under his microscope, its movements almost hypnotic. The pathogen writhed and pulsed like a living creature with a malevolent will. He couldn't let it win. Lyra sat nearby, her luminescent skin now dim and her breaths shallow. She leaned back against the wall, her usually radiant silver hair now dull and lifeless. Despite her weakened state, her eyes tracked Daniel's every movement, a mix of hope and fear etched across her features. What do you see? She asked, her voice faint but clear. Daniel adjusted the microscope's focus. It's unlike anything I've studied. It's adaptive. It responds to new environments almost instantly, breaking down and rebuilding itself in ways that defy logic. But there's a weakness, it slows when it encounters certain human enzymes. I think I can use that to create a compound to neutralize it. Her lips curved into a faint smile. Your species continues to surprise me. That adaptability, that drive, it's extraordinary. Her words were meant to encourage him, but they also carried a heavy implication. If he failed, her life would be the cost. Daniel pushed that thought aside and focused on the task. He couldn't afford distractions, not now. The search for a cure. Daniel retrieved samples of various enzymes from his freezer, remnants of his graduate research. He also brought out a collection of plant extracts he'd once used to study molecular interactions. His mind worked like a finely tuned machine, cataloging possibilities and narrowing down options. I'll need to test how the pathogen reacts to these, he explained, half to himself and half to Lyra. If I can isolate the enzyme that disrupts its structure, I might be able to amplify the effect. Lyra nodded weakly. I can assist, with knowledge. My people's research might help you identify parallels. Daniel hesitated. You're in no condition to work. You should rest. Her glowing eyes softened. I cannot rest knowing my life is in your hands. Let me at least guide you. She raised her hand, a faint light emanating from her fingertips. In the air between them, a holographic interface appeared, filled with alien symbols and molecular diagrams. Daniel's jaw dropped. The technology was so advanced it made his equipment look like toys. This is the pathogen's genome, she said, pointing to an intricate structure that seemed to twist and shift like a living puzzle. These regions are its core. If you target them, it will collapse. Daniel stared at the display in awe. You just have this with you? It is encoded into my neural pathways, she explained. A precaution for situations like this. Her calm, almost clinical explanation belied the enormity of what she had shared. It was a treasure trove of knowledge, and it gave him a fighting chance. Moments of humanity. Hours passed as they worked together, Daniel meticulously testing combinations of enzymes and compounds while Lyra provided insights. Despite the urgency, there were moments of quiet connection. Why Earth? Daniel asked as he prepared another slide. Why did you come here of all places? Lyra's gaze softened. Your planet is unique in its biodiversity. The life forms here share traits with those on my world enough that I hope to find what I needed to survive. But there's more to it than that. She paused, as if choosing her words carefully. We've watched your species for centuries, observed your growth, your resilience. You are imperfect, yes, but also remarkable. You face insurmountable odds with a stubborn determination that few other species possess. Daniel chuckled dryly. Some would call that recklessness. Lyra smiled faintly. Perhaps. But it is also what makes you exceptional. Her words filled him with a quiet pride. He had always felt insignificant in the grand scheme of the cosmos, but now he was beginning to understand that humanity's strength lay in its unyielding spirit. A glimmer of hope. By nightfall, Daniel had made progress. One combination of enzymes and plant extracts showed promise. Under the microscope, the pathogen's movement slowed, its structure destabilizing as the compound worked its way through. I think this might be it, Daniel said, his voice a mix of excitement and exhaustion. He turned to Lyra, who had been monitoring his work through the holographic interface. But it's untested. I don't know if it's safe. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, as if drawing strength from within. We have no choice. The pathogen is spreading faster. I can feel it. Daniel's stomach twisted. He hadn't noticed the faint sheen of sweat on her skin or the way her hands trembled slightly. She was deteriorating, and time was slipping away. All right, he said, his resolve hardening. But I'm going to monitor every step of this. If something goes wrong, I'll... You'll do your best, she interrupted gently. That is all I can ask. He prepared the syringe carefully, his hands shaking as he drew the golden liquid into the vial. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to stop. This was reckless, dangerous, and completely uncharted territory. But one look at Lyra's face, at the quiet strength she radiated even in her weakened state, silenced his doubts. Are you ready? He asked. She nodded, her luminous eyes meeting his. I trust you, Daniel. The first injection. The moment the needle pierced her skin, Daniel's heart stopped. For a second, nothing happened. Then Lyra's body convulsed, her back arching as a wave of energy rippled through her. Her glow flickered violently, alternating between bright and dim. Lyra! Daniel shouted, panic surging through him. He grabbed her hand, feeling its warmth ebb and flow like a tide. Her breathing grew shallow, and for a moment, he thought he had failed. But then her body stilled, her glow stabilizing into a soft, steady light. She opened her eyes, and for the first time since her arrival, they sparkled with vitality. You did it, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. The pathogen is weakening. Relief washed over Daniel, leaving him lightheaded. But before he could celebrate, Lyra's expression turned somber. Daniel, she said softly, this is only the beginning. Secrets of the Cosmos. The basement lab had become a sanctuary of quiet triumph and simmering tension. Daniel paced the room, occasionally glancing at Lyra as she leaned against the wall, her glow steady but subdued. The serum had worked, for now, but both of them knew the battle wasn't over. As Lyra regained her strength, she began adjusting the holographic interface projected from her wrist. Complex alien symbols danced in midair, shifting and reforming like living organisms. Daniel watched in awe, his scientific mind hungry for answers. Your technology, he began hesitantly, it's beyond anything we've ever dreamed of. How does it work? Lyra glanced up, her expression thoughtful. It's not just technology, Daniel. It's biology woven into energy. Everything we create is designed to live symbiotically with us. Machines on my world aren't separate entities, they're extensions of our will. Daniel tried to wrap his mind around the concept. That explains why it seems alive. But why share this with me? Lyra hesitated, her glowing eyes meeting his. Because if I fail, this knowledge cannot die with me. Your species has the potential to evolve into something extraordinary. You deserve to know what lies beyond your skies. Her words sent a shiver down Daniel's spine. He had spent his life staring at the stars, dreaming of what lay out there. Now, a piece of that vast, unknowable universe sat across from him, trusting him with secrets that could change everything. A new threat emerges. Lyra's momentary recovery didn't last long. By the next morning, her glow had begun to dim again, and she appeared visibly weaker. Daniel felt a knot of dread form in his chest. It's adapting, Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. She gestured to the holographic model of the pathogen, which had begun shifting its structure in response to the serum. This is its nature. It learns, evolves. We've only slowed it down. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling to the surface. Then we need to act fast. If it's evolving, we have to stay ahead of it. But how do we even begin to outpace something like this? Lyra's gaze was steady despite her frailty. On my world, we use a combination of treatments, biological and energetic. The serum you created is a start, but we'll need more. There may be compounds in your planet's flora that can act as stabilizers. Daniel nodded, already formulating a plan. He thought back to his fieldwork in biochemistry and the countless plant specimens he had studied. There were several species in the nearby forest with unique properties, but gathering them would take time. I'll go, he said, grabbing his jacket. Lyra shook her head weakly. It's too dangerous. If the pathogen evolves further while you're gone, I might not survive. Daniel hesitated, torn between the urgency of the situation and the risk of leaving her alone. I can't just sit here and do nothing. We need those plants. I'll be quick, I promise. Reluctantly, Lyra nodded. Be careful, Daniel. And take this. She removed a small, disc-like device from her suit and handed it to him. It was cool to the touch, its surface etched with intricate patterns. What is it? He asked. A beacon, she replied. If anything happens, activate it. I'll come for you, or what's left of me will. Into the unknown. The forest was alive with the sounds of early morning, a stark contrast to the stillness that had followed Lyra's crash. Daniel moved swiftly, his flashlight casting long shadows as he searched for the plants he needed. His mind buzzed with fragments of Lyra's explanations, piecing together a plan that might just save her. The first plant was easy to find, a vibrant green fern with spiky leaves that exuded a faint citrus scent. It contained alkaloids that could potentially stabilize cellular structures. The second was trickier, a rare blue-flowered vine that only grew near water. Daniel's heart raced as he followed the faint sound of a nearby stream, praying he wouldn't run out of time. He found the vine clinging to the rocks along the stream bank, its petals glistening with dew. As he carefully clipped a sample, a sudden rustling in the bushes made him freeze. Who's there? He called, his voice steady but wary. The rustling grew louder, and before he could react, a sleek, four-legged creature stepped into view. It was unlike any animal he had ever seen, its body covered in shimmering scales that shifted colors with every movement. Its eyes glowed faintly, much like Lyra's, and its posture was both curious and predatory. Daniel backed away slowly, clutching the plant samples tightly. The creature tilted its head, studying him, but made no move to attack. Easy, Daniel murmured, his pulse pounding. I'm not here to hurt you. To his astonishment, the creature let out a low, melodic sound, almost like a purr, before retreating back into the bushes. Shaking his head, Daniel quickly made his way back to the house, the encounter lingering in his thoughts. A desperate experiment. When Daniel returned, Lyra's condition had worsened. Her glow was nearly gone, and her breathing was shallow. You're back, she said, her voice barely audible. I found what we need, he replied, setting the plants on the table. But we'll have to move fast. He worked with feverish intensity, extracting compounds from the plants and combining them with the serum. The process was delicate, each step requiring precision. Lyra watched him with quiet determination, her trust in him unwavering. As he prepared the final mixture, Daniel felt a surge of both hope and fear. "This has to work," he muttered, more to himself than to Lyra. He injected the new serum into her arm, his hands trembling. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lyra's body convulsed, her glow flickering wildly. Daniel gripped her hand, his heart hammering in his chest. "Come on," he whispered. "Don't give up now." Slowly, the convulsions subsided, and Lyra's glow began to stabilize. Her breathing grew steadier, and when she opened her eyes, they sparkled with renewed vitality. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with awe. Daniel let out a shaky laugh, relief flooding through him. But before he could celebrate, Lyra sat up abruptly, her expression turning serious. "Something's coming," she said, her eyes narrowing. Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Lyra gestured to the holographic interface, where a new alert was flashing. "My people. They've found me." Her words hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder that their struggle was far from over. Arrival of the unknown. The air grew heavy, vibrating with an unearthly hum that seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere at once. Lyra's holographic interface projected a spinning diagram of her star system, and on its edge, 3 glowing points of light moved steadily toward the center, toward Earth. "They're here," Lyra murmured, her voice trembling. The faint luminescence of her skin pulsed erratically, mirroring her unease. "My people have found my beacon." Daniel stood frozen, his mind racing. He had spent days pouring every ounce of his energy into saving Lyra, and now, the arrival of her kind threatened to shatter the fragile calm they had built. "Is that good or bad?" he asked hesitantly. Lyra's gaze locked onto his, her glowing eyes shadowed with worry. "It's complicated. My people will want to retrieve me, but if they sense a threat, they may act preemptively. Your planet could be seen as collateral damage." Daniel's stomach churned. "So what do we do? Hide you? Talk to them?" "No," Lyra said firmly, shaking her head. "We prepare. They will sense the pathogen in me and will assume Earth is contaminated. If they perceive humanity as a threat, they won't hesitate to neutralize it." The words hung in the air like a blade, sharp and foreboding. Daniel clenched his fists. "Neutralize it? You mean, they destroy Earth?" Lyra nodded gravely. "It's protocol. My people fear the pathogen above all else. They would rather obliterate an entire biosphere than risk it spreading." The countdown begins. Daniel felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him like a tidal wave. He had saved Lyra, but in doing so, he had inadvertently triggered a chain reaction that could doom his planet. He glanced at the holographic display. The glowing points of light were drawing closer. "How much time do we have?" "Hours at most," Lyra replied. She stood, though unsteadily, her glow brightening as her strength returned. "But I have an idea. If we can demonstrate that the pathogen is neutralized, they might reconsider." Daniel frowned. "How do we prove that?" "I've only tested the serum on you." Lyra stepped closer, her expression resolute. "We show them the science. My people are logical above all else. If we can present empirical evidence that the pathogen poses no threat, they might spare your planet." Daniel nodded, his scientist's mind kicking into overdrive. "Then we need to collect data. Samples, tests, anything that can prove the serum works." Without wasting another moment, they dove into the task. Daniel worked tirelessly, documenting every interaction between the serum and the pathogen. Lyra assisted, her advanced knowledge bridging gaps in his understanding. Together, they compiled a comprehensive analysis, a fusion of human ingenuity and alien expertise. A visitor in the sky. As they worked, the hum in the air grew louder, a low, resonant sound that seemed to shake the very molecules around them. Daniel paused, his hands trembling. "What's that noise?" Lyra closed her eyes, her expression tense. Their arrival. They're in orbit. Daniel's pulse quickened. They're here already? Yes, Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. And they'll scan the area first. If they detect the pathogen, they'll act without hesitation. A bright light suddenly flooded the basement, streaming in through the narrow windows. Daniel's breath caught in his throat as he ran upstairs and threw open the front door. Above the house, the sky rippled like water disturbed by an invisible hand. A massive, disc-shaped craft shimmered into view, its surface reflecting the stars as if it were part of the cosmos itself. The ship exuded an air of immense power and precision, its sheer presence humbling and terrifying. Lyra appeared behind Daniel, her expression calm but grave. They've come for me. But we have to act quickly. Once they detect the pathogen's presence in my biology, they'll decide. Daniel turned to her. Then we show them the data. How do we communicate with them? Lyra raised her hand, activating the beacon she had given Daniel earlier. It emitted a soft, resonant tone that seemed to align with the hum of the ship above. They'll come to us, she said. But we must be ready. A meeting with the unknown. Moments later, a beam of light descended from the ship, enveloping the clearing outside Daniel's house. From within the light, 3 figures emerged, their forms humanoid but unmistakably alien. They moved with an otherworldly grace, their translucent skin shimmering with colors that shifted like oil on water. Their eyes, larger than Lyra's, glowed with an intense, piercing light. Daniel felt an overwhelming urge to bow or run, he wasn't sure which. Instead, he stood his ground, clutching the tablet containing their compiled data. Lyra stepped forward, her demeanor both deferential and commanding. Elders, she said, her voice echoing with a melodic resonance. I am Lyra of the Starborn. I have been infected with the pathogen, but I am no longer a threat. This human has cured me. The aliens regarded her silently, their expressions unreadable. One of them stepped forward, its voice reverberating in Daniel's mind rather than his ears. You claim the human has neutralized the plague? Yes, Lyra replied. We have compiled evidence to support our claim. The pathogen has been rendered inert. Daniel stepped forward, his hands trembling slightly as he held out the tablet. This contains everything. Test results, interaction data, molecular breakdowns, it's all here. The alien elder extended a hand, and the tablet floated from Daniel's grasp, enveloped in a soft glow. It hovered before the 3 figures, who examined the data in silence. Minutes passed, each one stretching into eternity. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest as he waited for their verdict. Judgment Day. Finally, the lead alien spoke. Your data is compelling. The pathogen appears to be neutralized. However, your methods are crude by our standards. What guarantees can you offer that this solution is stable? Daniel felt a lump rise in his throat, but Lyra answered before he could. The humans' methods are primitive, but their ingenuity is undeniable. Given time, they could refine the solution. Their potential is vast, and they deserve the chance to grow. The aliens exchanged glances, their glowing eyes flickering. The lead elder finally turned to Daniel. Your actions have saved one of our own. For this, we will spare your planet. But know this, human, your species stands at the edge of greatness and destruction. The path you choose will determine your place in the cosmos. Before Daniel could respond, the beam of light reappeared, engulfing the aliens and Lyra. She turned to him, her expression bittersweet. This is goodbye, Daniel, she said softly. But you've proven that humanity is worthy of the stars. Don't forget what you've learned. The light intensified, and in an instant, they were gone. The sky above returned to its natural state, leaving Daniel standing alone in the clearing, the weight of the universe pressing on his shoulders, the weight of the stars. The silence in the clearing felt deafening. The massive alien craft had vanished into the night sky as if it had never been there. Yet the echoes of its presence lingered, an electric hum in the air, the faint shimmer of disturbed starlight, and the deep, hollow ache in Daniel's chest. Lyra was gone. Daniel stood frozen, his mind reeling from everything that had transpired. For days, his world had revolved around saving her, unraveling the mysteries of alien biology, and fending off the impending doom she had warned him about. Now, in the stillness of the forest, a strange emptiness took root. But there was no time to dwell on loss. Lyra had left him a gift, a trove of knowledge and the lingering hope that humanity's ingenuity could secure its place in the cosmos. That hope burned like a tiny ember in Daniel's chest, igniting a determination he hadn't realized he possessed. The legacy of Lyra. Back in his basement lab, Daniel surveyed the chaos of his makeshift workstation. Vials of glowing serum, alien holographic schematics, and hastily scribbled notes were scattered across every surface. Each item told a fragment of the story he had just lived, a story that felt too surreal to believe. In the corner of the room sat the device Lyra had given him, a sleek, disc-shaped beacon. Though its primary purpose had been to summon her people, it still pulsed faintly, as though waiting for some unspoken command. Daniel picked it up, turning it over in his hands. Its surface was etched with symbols that seemed to shimmer and shift under his touch. He placed it back on the table and activated the holographic interface Lyra had used. To his astonishment, the interface responded. Streams of alien data filled the air, shimmering diagrams of molecular structures and star charts projecting in vivid detail. Among the data, a single file stood out, marked with a glowing blue glyph. He selected it, and Lyra's voice filled the room. Daniel, her message began, her tone calm and purposeful. If you're hearing this, it means my people have spared your world. But the journey ahead is not without its challenges. The knowledge I leave with you is a gift and a responsibility. It holds the potential to elevate humanity or destroy it. Use it wisely. Her image flickered into view, a shimmering silhouette that seemed both real and unreal. Within this archive are the blueprints for the serum we created together, along with data about the pathogen and its weaknesses. But there is more: schematics for technologies that can heal your world and protect it from future threats. Daniel felt a lump rise in his throat. She had entrusted him with the tools to transform humanity's future. But with that trust came a burden he wasn't sure he was ready to bear. A world unaware. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel threw himself into deciphering Lyra's archive. His every waking moment was spent cataloging, analyzing, and replicating the alien technology. He created backups of the data, storing it securely on multiple encrypted drives. But the rest of the world went on, blissfully unaware of how close it had come to annihilation. News outlets reported strange atmospheric phenomena over the countryside, but these stories were quickly dismissed as weather anomalies or elaborate hoaxes. Daniel couldn't decide if the ignorance was a blessing or a curse. Part of him wanted to share what he had learned, to scream to the world that humanity was no longer alone in the universe. But another part of him knew the truth would invite chaos, fear, greed, and conflict. For now, the secret was his alone. The shadow of doubt. One stormy evening, as Daniel reviewed yet another set of Lyra's schematics, he felt the weight of doubt creeping in. The enormity of what he was trying to achieve loomed over him like a storm cloud. What if he failed? What if humanity wasn't ready for the knowledge Lyra had given him? The thought of her trust being misplaced gnawed at him. He turned to the beacon, its faint pulse a constant reminder of her presence. "What would you do, Lyra?" he muttered aloud. "Would you trust us? Would you trust me?" As if in response, the beacon flared briefly, its glow intensifying before settling back into its steady rhythm. Daniel blinked, unsure if it was a malfunction or some deeper sign. The experiment. Determined to prove that humanity could rise to the occasion, Daniel focused on replicating the serum. Using the data Lyra had left, he began synthesizing a stable version of the compound that could be mass-produced if ever needed. The first few trials were disastrous. The serum degraded rapidly when exposed to Earth's atmosphere, and the enzyme interactions proved more volatile than he anticipated. Frustration mounted as days of work yielded little progress. But Daniel refused to give up. Lyra's words echoed in his mind, "Your kind has survived countless trials. It is admirable." Finally, after weeks of relentless effort, he succeeded. The serum remained stable under rigorous testing, its efficacy proven time and again. Holding the final vial in his hands, Daniel felt a surge of triumph. It wasn't just a cure, it was a testament to humanity's resilience and potential. The call of the stars. With the serum perfected, Daniel's thoughts turned to the broader implications of Lyra's knowledge. Among her files were star charts and data on nearby systems, including coordinates for a habitable planet her people had once studied. He stared at the charts, his mind racing with possibilities. Humanity had always looked to the stars with wonder and ambition, but now, for the first time, the path was clear. Lyra's archive held the keys to propulsion systems, sustainable habitats, and interstellar travel. But was humanity ready? Daniel wrestled with the question late into the night. Lyra's warning about the dual-edged nature of knowledge haunted him. Would humanity use these tools to explore and thrive, or to dominate and destroy? A new mission. By morning, Daniel had made his decision. He couldn't keep the knowledge to himself forever, but neither could he release it recklessly. He began drafting a detailed plan, outlining how the information could be shared responsibly, ensuring it benefited humanity as a whole. He reached out to trusted colleagues in the scientific community, presenting small, digestible pieces of the data under the guise of independent research. Slowly but surely, he laid the groundwork for a future where Lyra's legacy could flourish without falling into the wrong hands. And as he worked, he kept one eye on the stars, knowing that the cosmos still held countless mysteries and perhaps even a chance to see Lyra again.